After an exhilarating 4 days at Augusta, we got to run it all back once again with another PGA Tour signature event on tap this week. Luckily, the stakes not quite as high as there is no one chasing down the career Grand Slam trying to chase away demons at Augusta, but still a pretty fun field despite the fact that Rory McIlroy are celebrating for this week. Today, we're going to break down the RBC Heritage Open, breaking down our thoughts on Harbour Town, letting you know our top bets of the week and the top DFS plays on FanDuel as well. Welcome on into the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Tuesday by Brandon Gdula. You can find him on X at Gdula13. He is on Blue Sky at Gdula. Check out his work at FanDuel Research, where he is a senior managing editor. Brandon, Rory did it. Made for a really fun entire weekend, honestly. Just an absolute ride to watch a guy make 4 doubles and still win. Kind of tells you he's pretty freaking good at this golf thing. So, like, as a sports fan, that's kind of all you can ask for. As a golf fan, it was even more. So I am still trying to calm down. How are you doing today?
Yeah, what a ride that was. Basically from Thursday, you get that hope. And I didn't bet Rory. He started the week too short. But when I don't have a bet on someone and I want them to win, that tells me a lot. Seeing like all the stuff he's gone through, and I know it's kind of strange because a lot of people are fans of Rory, but a lot of people don't like him, and I understand.
Yeah.
Well, I can understand but disagree with like that mentality, honestly, when it comes to Rory. But seeing history is just what makes sports special, and for Rory to do that, and I was like, he's gonna cry. Like, there's no way he's not gonna cry if he wins. Like, he could win by 7. He could, win by the skin of his teeth, like he ended up doing. But like, he's got to break down. This has been so much built up, and it's not even just that. The elusive green jacket. It's like other close calls at majors, and it's like he went from the next big thing with the guarantees to like, will this ever happen? And I'm not going to throw anyone else in that bucket of like, well, hey, maybe it won't happen. But, you see like Ludwig, and you're like, oh, it's just a matter of time before he gets one of these. But now he's played it twice, it was kind of runner up both times. But now, like, if he's in contention, he's got to remember, like, he's going to remember what he did on 18. And maybe he can put that out of his mind. But, there's just, when it comes to golf, there's just such a balance between the physicality of it, and I know that the distance and like all the technology is one thing, but you gotta have that mental game. And I thought like maybe Rory on 11. I think 11 he made like the good, like the right choice, but 13 is like maybe that mental game just still isn't there. Maybe he could do it for the players, but not for history. And I'm just glad that he got it, and now we can look ahead to Jordan Spieth getting his slam. So.
Yeah, exactly. Could do that this year. Would be wild to have nobody do it in 25 years. Only 2 people do it from 66 to 25, and all of a sudden have 2 in the same year. So that'd be a fun storyline too. But like, I think just
Oakmont.
What's that?
We can get Phil at Oakmont, maybe. Just everyone gets one.
We can get 2 this year. But like, I think the coolest thing was like just watching. Like, obviously, like, we root for Rory. We love Rory. Didn't bet on him. I did get the head-to-head against Scotty. Like, that was the only thing I had on him, though, for last week. But it was, like, just watching it, the way he reacted to it, and, like, the way the broadcast let him cook, basically. Like, Jim Nantz gets out of the way, and then they don't talk for, like, 7 minutes as he walks down the stretch of people congratulating him as he, like, openly sobs. It's, like, not even, like, sports fans or golf fans, but, like, as, like, humans, it's fun to watch people experience that depth of emotion and like be that like open. And like Rory's been that for a long time. He's been a guy who's talked about like the emotions. He's been pretty upfront about a lot of stuff. I know like kind of ducked availability at the US Open last year, but like outside of that, he's been someone who's been available and kind of hasn't hid his emotions. And I think that's why it was very fitting the way he won. You could tell he was nervous. You could tell all that stuff on one. And then like later on throughout the day, he doesn't hide it. And I think that's kind of what deepens the appreciation of seeing him do what he did on Sunday, and honestly on Saturday too.
Yeah, I mean, there are just numerous like I have trouble like visualizing certain things, but I'm gonna remember his reaction to multiple shots on 13. You know, when he made eagle, he had that sigh of relief when he put it in the look. Like that's one of the worst shots that I've seen
Oh yeah.
compared to the moment, and like that's
Yeah.
not a. But to come back from that, and even to come back from 18 when he hit wedge into the bunker, it's like it's also weird. We don't recap golf, but this one's hard not to recap.
Yeah.
So my wife Sierra was like pretty invested. She loves TGL actually, which is sick.
Yeah.
So, like, but she we've been watching Full Swing, so she's become like a Rory fan.
Yeah, same here.
She was excited to watch the end of it, and I was like, 17 and 18, they're hard. Like it's not a guarantee, and he, it wasn't the easiest on 18 for him, but he got there, and like it's just another. I mean, nobody else needs to shout out the Masters basically, but that event being one where you don't go run and hide is so sick. When making par is a good score on most holes, it's like,
yeah,
that's what I love about golf. It's relatable, and to see these guys, like I know sometimes some of these, greens are too hard to stick, or some putts just run 7 feet past, but it's relatable. It makes birdies feel special. And, most of the time on the PGA Tour, it's like if you don't make birdie, like you're falling behind. And like that's not, I know a lot of people like that, I think, but I just don't, and I'm never going to.
Yeah.
So, sites are set. I do like RBC Heritage. I love Harbour Town. It's an interesting course, but the majors, especially when they're playing tough, it's unlike anything else in sports to me, honestly, because you got to conquer the field, you got to conquer yourself, you got to conquer the course. It's just a reminder that golf at its peak is special.
Yeah. My wife is also a Full Swing fan, also a Rory fan as a result of Full Swing. And so it transitioned on Saturday from she was asking like, how is Rory doing? Just like kind of checking in on him. And it was like, oh, yeah. he's up 3 shots. On Sunday, I think she could sense my like nervous energy. And she was like, how many holes are left? Like the question changed from like, how is he doing to how many holes are left? And like, it was rough, but it was a lot of fun. Just to get to watch that again. Like as sports fans, as humans, it was a great time. So sad there's no Rory this week, but very understandable.
Yeah.
Go party, go celebrate, because it was a fun ride for sure, but still a very fun field. We're going to break down our thoughts on that field, let you know who we're eyeing from a DFS perspective and best bets for this week at Harbour Town. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel Research Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Every Tuesday, we're here breaking down PGA, talking best bets and DFS picks over on FanDuel. Also up on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page. Subscribe there to the YouTube page. Also subscribe to the FanDuel Research Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a thumbs up on YouTube. We appreciate those of you who have already done so and who are watching over there as always. Subscribe there, turn on notifications, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast feed as well to get these PGA shows every Tuesday. The NBA play-in tournament gives some teams one last shot at making the playoffs, but FanDuel's giving all customers all new customers a shot at $250 in bonus bets. Join FanDuel today. You'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. From 3-pointers to steals and assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Just visit FanDuel to get in on all the NBA play-in tournament action. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online, real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Help in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look now at Harbour Town Golf Links, the host of this week's RBC Heritage Open, which is, again, a signature event. It is 7,213 yards and a par 71. It has been slightly lengthened since last year's event. Harbour Town, traditionally not a distance course, which you'll talk about here in a second, but a bit more length this weekend. And then there is no cut this weekend. There have been some cuts in signature events this year. That is not the case for this weekend. 72 golfers are in the field for all 4 rounds, assuming they do not withdraw. So, Brandon, when we look at RBC Heritage and Harbour Town Golf Links, or Harbour Town Golf Links, what stands out to you from a stats perspective?
Yeah, I mean, the big one that we always talk about, and it's not untrue, but it's that accuracy wins out. And that's still mostly true, but honestly, we've seen some longer hitters play well here, and we've seen some good in tournament distance ranks like correlate with success. Last year when Scotty Scheffler won by 3, everyone who was T3 or better, so 4 names were all top 30 in distance. Justin Thomas and Patrick Rogers were 2 of the guys tied for 5th. They were top 5 in distance. I'm not going to go through like the whole list, but Matt Fitzpatrick, Jordan Spieth, Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele finished 1, 2, 3, 4 the year prior. They ranked 12th, 11th, 10th, and 24th in distance respectively. So there is something to gaining some distance where it's possible, but this doesn't really lend itself to hitting, just pounding driver over and over again. The hard part with this, and it's been a while probably since we've talked about this, is if it's not a driving distance course, it can bring into play more golfers who don't need to be long off the tee. However, your distance advantage with a 5-iron, let's assume like the same loft and everything. I know that's not safe to assume, but like you're hitting the ball farther with shorter clubs still, and these greens are tiny. 3,700 square feet on average, some of the smallest that we get on tour all year. So you're going to miss some greens and you got to get up and down. So basically what this turns into is a tee to green contest for the most part, where putting itself is a little bit able to be mitigated, but their strokes gained approach is my number 1 stat. I really struggled with the second one because I'm going to do off the tee. Like that's the easy part, but I tend to say like an emphasis on accuracy or an emphasis on distance because I never like to sell out for just one or the other. Those stats tend to be flawed anyway. I think the strongest take I'm going to give here is that I'm not particularly leaning on accuracy. It's great. I'll use it in my defense if I need to. Someone like Aaron Rai comes to mind, but I'm not disqualifying someone for being, having some last 50 round stats that are a little subpar when it comes to hitting fairways because we just haven't seen it, frankly. I am having strokes gained around the green on the list as well. So that's all 3 tee to green stats. I do like to split those up so I can weight them differently, but strokes gained tee to green, mostly fine for this week. And you do see a big increase in shot frequency, specifically from 175 to 200 yards, according to Data Golf. If you dig back through, it's just a huge spike. So if you are that type of person, you want to look at proximity from certain ranges, you can pull up the PGA Tour's website. Data Golf has an approach skill tool that you can dig into. So those are my 4 key stats. I'm keeping it pretty basic. And I will say one thing, it's not a key stat, but it's probably fair to question, like, okay, what happens? What do we do with all the guys who maybe contended at the Masters or played last week? It's a big mental grind. They're turning around, got a somewhat short trip to Harbour Town. Like, what does that sort of do? Well, the last 4 winners all played the Masters. Scotty went back-to-back with the wins. The year before that, Matt Fitzpatrick was T10. Jordan Spieth won here in 2022, but did miss the cut at the 2022 Masters. And then Stuart Sink finished T12 in 2021 at the Masters and then went out to win. So this 4 years make like a slam dunk, have to have it trend. No, this is also a signature, event. So a lot of these guys did play last week, but I'm not going to use any sort of like, oh, Colin Morikawa played pretty okay, but not anything great. Like, how does that factor in? I kind of want to see, someone playing last week, but that's also kind of just picking the better golfers who made the Masters field. playing in a very tough field this week.
So when you talk about what has been trending up recently at Harbour Town, you're talking about how, it's not as much of an accuracy course as perception may be. We can see that a bit in the list of golfers who have done well here recently, where, yeah, you do get some guys who are pretty accurate off the tee and may get bumped up at that kind of course, but you get a mix in the course history studs. So who stands out to you to look at the most recent data here at Harbour Town?
Yeah, so if I look at the last 5 years of data here, in 2020, this was held in June, so keep that in mind, but I'm going to throw it in here. You do see a mix, but it's kind of a reminder that there's it's more than every course is more than just hitting the fairway. If golf were just about hitting the fairway, I'd actually be really good at golf. That's like one of my strengths, but there's way too much. There's so much more to golf than just hitting the fairway. That's something that is always hard to convey whenever we talk about accuracy mattering, because you can't just sort by the most accurate hitters. That's not gonna get you anywhere. But leading the list in terms of total strokes gained over the last 5 years at Harbour Town, according to my data, is Matt Fitzpatrick. He was 28th here last year after a win, which actually came after a missed cut, and he was 4th and 14th before that. He was T40 at the Masters. He's a name that we haven't really talked about a lot, for kind of good reason. He's got 4 straight events with negative approach play. So I've kind of seen, you'll probably see people say Harbour Town's a little more predictive than most courses. It's a sort of a stylized event. I don't disagree with that, but I can also do a little bit better than Matt Fitzpatrick, I think, with some other names. Patrick Cantlay is phenomenal at Harbour Town. He's got 3 straight top 3 finishes. Did miss the cut before that. He finished T36 at the Masters with terrible wedges, but that's going to kind of happen whenever you chip it into the water like 400 times. So that's part of it. But his irons are honestly really great. Overall, he's got 1 missed cut here back in 2021, but has been top 7 in all 6 other starts. So if you like Cantlay, if you've been liking Cantlay, this is a week to, take a long look at him. Brian Harmon's played well here, 5 straight top 35s and 2 straight top 12s. He did finish T36 at the Masters, mostly with the putting, but he's got a lot of course history and a lot of good finishes of late as well at Harbour Town. Justin Thomas also on the list, probably doesn't come to mind as someone who would play this course particularly well, but he doesn't play Augusta well. So I'm not really factoring in the fact that he was T36 last week. It's not a good course fit for him. He was second at Valspar prior to that, but he's got 4 top 35s here over the last 5 years in his only starts. And he's been top 25 back-to-back years. He's usually got good ball striking stats at this course. Matt Kuchar is someone who we would think would play Harbour Town well, and he has. Did not play the Masters, but was T18 in his start prior to that. The form's kind of fine. He just plays really well here. Since 2014, he's got a win in 9 total top 25s in 10 starts. So if you're like a course history guy, Matt Kuchar at Harbour Town, this is kind of your week. So there's that. Daniel Berger has also played well here. Did not play here the last 2 years, but top 21 in the 3 prior to that. He was T21 at the Masters. So he's got 7 straight events with positive approach. And he's made all 5 cuts in his career at Harbour Town. Just hasn't played here since 2022. Finishing off the list, we got JT Poston, who's got 3 top 10s and 2 missed cuts the last 5 years. Was T42 at the Masters. Hasn't showed a lot of ceiling, but we've kind of seen it. We've seen his ceiling at this course. Corey Connors couldn't, close it out on Sunday, kind of fell off, but still finished top 10, which we love because we were on that last week. Irons are great. 5 straight made cuts at Harbour Town. Sung J M, I was not on, but he's got 4 straight top 25s here. His irons just aren't particularly good. Super neutral last week. When he finished T5 at the Masters, it's like he does everything but the iron play, which is a pretty rare profile, but we do see it. Scotty Scheffler, win in 11th in his 2 starts, just like B+ game, B level game, got him a T4 at the Masters. So that's a little scary this week. Cam Davis, again, big hitter, but played well here. In the past, just missed the cut at the Masters with the worst irons in the field. I'm not there. I've been a Cam Davis guy in the past. Thankfully, in 2021 Rocket Mortgage, I was there, but it's been a while since we've seen too much from him. And then one Colin Morikawa has been 9th, 31st, 26th, 7th, and 64th at Harbour Town over the last 5 years. Pretty uncompetitive T14 at the Masters, but did rank 7th in approach. Was 9th here last year with actually negative strokes gained approach. He has had one other negative strokes gained approach event since then. So I'm going to take that more of a sign as he's going to play well here and go from there. I know it's a long list, but what stands out to me whenever I do get a long list is like maybe there is something to course history being more predictive at this event, and that should matter. It's a pretty long list. Later today on Tuesday, I'll have a post with everyone's strokes gain data here over the last 5 years. So you can check that out on FanDuel Research. But who jumps out to you on this list?
The people I wanted to discuss are a couple of guys we have talked about recently here on the show, but I couldn't quite get to this week. And I wanted to kind of like check with you. And I have not looked at your win picks, so like it's possible you're going to talk about these guys later. But the the three who stood out to me were Justin Thomas, who I have lost a lot of money on this year. He's 20-1. Patrick Cantlay, 20-1. Of course, done very well here. Corey Connors, 22-1, who we were on last week. Hung on. It wound up being a dead heat for a top 10 because there were 11 guys in the top 10. He was, there. So a little bit salty about that. But he's 22-1 for this week. All guys, the good course history here. All guys who have been informed. We've talked about it in some fashion recently. I looked into all three of them, wound up going elsewhere with my bets. Am I overlooking them? Is that a mistake? What's your read on these guys here?
I've got a list of I didn't count them, but it feels like 7 or 8 names that I like a lot this week. And that's assuming Scotty doesn't just go out and win by 4 shots,
which he very well could.
He might. Honestly, just annoyed that he didn't get to put his own green jacket on himself, basically. But JT, I was going to try to hide it. He's the name that I like this week. I looked into it more.
Let's go. Okay, that excites me. I thought it was going to be Cantlay, honestly, because you alluded to like a guy that was like a gym pick, and I was like, this is an old school gym pick, because that'd be Cantlay. But the fact that it's JT, that gets me a little jazzed.
It was a gym pick in the sense of I kept going back and forth of where I wanted to kind of settle on Patrick Cantlay, Russell Henley, Corey Connors, and Shane Lowry, and even Tommy Fleetwood a little bit, but I'm kind of done on Tommy. I'll go top 10s or top 20s or something with Tommy, but I think I'm out. But I looked more at JT, and if you look at standard deviations and scoring averages over the last 50 rounds, Scotty Scheffler unsurprisingly leads with his sort of ceiling potential, like 68% of his rounds, that kind of thing. Justin Thomas is not that far behind. And then there's a bit of a teardrop. JT's had a really good ceiling, has not really put it all together, and he's actually played better here than you would think. So, yes, Cantlay has a huge ceiling here without the wins. Like it's hard to have as good of a ceiling here or anywhere that compared to like what Cantlay has, which is without the win. But again, going kind of back to like the mathematical range of outcomes, ceiling, and how often he's getting there, he's been a really consistent golfer, kind of in that Tommy Fleetwood bucket where JT's more volatile. And if you're talking win picks, you want the volatility in the positive sense, and Justin Thomas is that name for me. So I came around, honestly didn't look at JT too much. I think maybe some of that in the back of my head was like, I didn't play well last week, but he doesn't play Augusta well. I
think it was honestly fatigue too. Like that's part of why I couldn't get there is like, I've done this so much. And like, I just finished second at the Valspar, but it's like, I've been here so much.
Well, anybody who's been listening to me for a while is going to get fatigued too with one of my other.
One of mine is also fatiguey. Actually, both, but one of them has worked out recently. So I get it. So yeah, I think that's a couple factors there, but he grades out really well based on what I'm looking at too. So I'm glad that you're on JT because I think that is like of those three, that's the one who intrigued me most between Connors, Cantlay, and JT. JT was tops for me there. Now let's talk about current form. Golfers entering with the best form as of now. Brandon, who stands out to you when you look at the past 3 months?
So if I go to Data Golf's True Strokes Gained query, there are 5 names in the field above a plus 1.75 over the last 3 months. And frankly, with how good this field is, that felt a little low to me. Just to have 5 above a, but that's kind of, I think my expectations now are just super high, and I feel like there's a lot of great golf right now.
I think part of it too is that we've got a larger sample in the past 3 months we've had recently. So like that kind of skews things as well. It's like, oh, it's a larger sample. It's harder to be at a 175 than it would have been in like, March or whatever.
Yeah. And I think like 175 is a pretty outrageous number, but whenever you're contending with like Scotty and Rory, and for most of last year, Xander, it's like, oh, if you're not a 2, like it's not great. But those 5 names right now are Scotty Scheffler at a plus 2.67, Colin Morikawa at a plus 2.46, Russell Henley 2.17, Justin Thomas 1.95. Shout out JT, and then Sepp Straka plus 1.94. I will just throw out Shane Lowry, who is at a plus 1.75. But what we really like to do here is look at the golfers with lower salaries on FanDuel. Before I do that, do you want to shout out anyone on that list for extra attention?
I did want to mention
about all.
Yeah. I want to mention that actually with both JT and Straka, it's over a larger sample too. You the past 3 months. I tend to look at the past 6. JT is 3rd across the past 6 months in strokes gained, true strokes gained per Data Golf, and Straka is 5th. So even when you expand the sample to be 6 months, they're both up there too. I don't think I have anything on Straka. No, I don't. Do I? I don't think I have anything on Straka yet. I have not bet Straka at all yet. Might need to amend that later, but form is very, very good for him, and I think that's noteworthy.
Yeah, it is. I will talk about him in the betting section. Cool. So we'll get around to it, but yeah, just an interesting play. With interesting players, some great form, got some like strokes gained tidbits as well. But the real core of this section is to look at the best golfers with lower salaries on FanDuel, just to give us a proxy of like who's worth talking about. It's not a super long list of golfers, at least a 1.4. It's a good field, but it's pretty flat. Like the drop off's pretty flat. So I want to focus on like the top names here. But Daniel Berger jumps out. His salary is $9,800. He's at a 1.7. We've talked about him quite a bit. He was T21 at the Masters to give him 7 straight top 30 finishes. We'll talk more about Berger throughout the show for sure. Justin Rose is next up on the list at a 1.61 strokes gained. Of course, we know what happened last week where he nearly got that win, which would have been so outrageous, but also kind of sick if like he got his moment because he's played Augusta so well. But
he's got a playoff before.
Yeah, 2017. But yeah, so he's got 3 top 10s in his last 6 starts. But it does kind of feel like with his long-term like back issues, he kind of chooses when to step on the gas. And if memory
serves, what's the pollen count in South Carolina on Hilton Head? Like, because JimSannes referenced it, I think, like on the broadcast, like Rose, you could see it on his nose. It's like, oh man, this poor guy's going through it.
Yeah, allergy season not ideal for any of us who struggle. Late in life, developing allergies is also kind of
define late in life. What are you talking about?
Like late in my life.
You're my age. I think meant like late in like okay.
No, like
current, recent.
No,
recent
like
in life.
I'm 34 and I started to get allergies at like 28. So it's not like I grew up with them knowing like what to expect.
I thought you meant like life expectancy is like 40.
Yeah, I know what you
final 6 years got to deal with allergies. Cool.
I know what you thought I meant. You didn't let me
finish.
I
was trying to break news to me here. Jeez.
I got another 200, 300 years. We're good.
Good. Good. Okay.
Because then I get to watch more Danny McCarthy.
That's right.
Out on the PGA Tour. He's at 1.55. Salary's 9,600. We liked him last week as a value play. Was T29 at the Masters. Was positive across the board in strokes gained, but it was mostly the putter. 4 straight made cuts here. as well, worth shouting out. Michael Kim, our guy, 9,100 is the salary. Missed the cut at the Players. T28 at Valspar, T32 at Houston, and T27 at the Masters. So he could be back on the menu. He's got some pretty poor history at Harbour Town, but with how much he's changed, I'm not really factoring that in by any means. Bud Colley's next up on the list at 8,700. He's at a 1.49. Since finishing T6 at the Players, he's continued that. T4 at Valspar, T5 at Valero with great iron play. Not the best history here, but 2 top 25s and 7 starts, and seems to be playing some good golf. Robert McIntyre, brutal. Irons and putter abandoned him at the Masters for sure. Salary's 10,000. He's at a 1.43 despite that. And then Minwoo Lee, I don't think he's a great fit here, but he is at a 1.40. Salary's 9,700. 49th at the Masters after winning the Houston Open. Putter just went cold last week, but not a lot of history here. Don't think he's going to be a great course fit, but honestly, the list it doesn't like dry up specifically, but it's just kind of like, you got like 3 more names at a 1.3. There's Jacob Bridgman, JJ Spawn, and Aaron Rye. And then you kind of just gradually jump down. And so like, there's not a lot of like flashing green light value plays this week.
Yeah.
I will say Aaron Rye does fit that. I probably should have just shoehorned him in here, but I did at least shout him out. So who on this list is appealing to you right now?
I think the bigger thing for me is kind of what you were alluding to at the end there, where there is a drop off. And I feel like that drop off probably occurs around Denny McCarthy at 96 from a DFS perspective. I feel like there's a pretty big gap. Rye is the exception, 87. I don't mind Keegan at 93. Like, he's fine. I'm very okay with that. Michael Kim, I would like if I weren't concerned about the fact he's played 167 holes of golf in the past week. Feels like at this point. Like, there are guys I'm okay with, but no one I'm like clamoring to use. So I feel like it'll wind up being kind of similar to last week, where it's like, okay, I'm going to build around my studs. I'm going to differentiate with the value plays, because outside of Rye, and frankly for me, Bud Colley, I know he didn't get the bold treatment on your list, but he's up there for me too. I feel like I kind of want to like commit to my studs and rotate through the value plays, because I don't feel as great about the value plays. And it sounds like, based on what you were saying there, it sounds like you're kind of on the same wavelength as me.
Yeah, there are multiple value golfers worth considering, but very few of them are like the loves. It's going to be Aaron Rye, but there's nothing against Bud Colley. Just kind of going down through the list, there's some imperfections. So what that really means is it's going to be harder to get to Scotty unless you just take 4 names that you're just sort of okay. I guess if I say I like Aaron Rye, like let's say 3 more names in that tier, because I forgot, I committed this to memory and then forgot. But if you start with Scotty Scheffler, whose salary is 14,000, you average 9,200 left for 5 golfers.
It's
like
tough.
You literally are kind of building 3 to 4 names in this tier of like the upper 8s to low 9s, unless you find something in the 7s, which I'm not. This is a signature event. You're not going to miss the cut. However, if you're dead last or close to it, you may as well have missed the cut. You all right?
Yeah. My contact slips. We're dealing with that right now. But yeah, I just got very emotional thinking about Bud Colley. We're trying to make this work. All right. Weather for this week looks pretty chill for the most part. The winds will be lowest on Thursday morning, but they're never going to be outrageous. Doesn't look like they'll hit double digits throughout the first couple of days. So don't see any like advantages for certain tee times and stuff like that. Should be good to go all around, and should be pretty normal weather throughout this week. With that said, let's dive in now to the betting odds over at FanDuel Sportsbook and try to identify our favorite bets for this week. Brandon, let's begin things with the outrights. Who do you think are the best win bets for this week at FanDuel?
So we talked fatigue of picking golfers and that whole situation. I'm going to give a caveat that I do wholeheartedly believe in this, and I will, like, I'm there myself. But I understand it if you're like, no, just no. But Colin Morikawa at 11-1 is the best value at the top of the board in my model. by a pretty good margin. He's just playing great golf. It just hasn't converted into wins. He hasn't won since 2023 in October, just small field Zozo. Before that, it was in November of 2021 for the DP World Tour Championship. That was months after he won the 2021 Open, but it's been a while. Morikawa, Cantlay, like a lot of these names just haven't actually won in a long time, but they're still playing really good golf. The difference, though, for me with Cantlay, I know that the odds are drastically different, 11-1 to 20-1, is the ceiling. Like Cantlay is honestly plotting his way to some good finishes and just not really contending. Morikawa has nearly won multiple times. I'll try to pull up like his data golf expected wins numbers, but like he's got to have some in that fashion. But he is 4th in approach and 7th off the tee over his last 50 rounds, according to Data Golf, with their field strength adjustments baked in. Mathematically, the variance is in his favor. He's got the 7th highest round by round scoring, sort of realistic ceiling. We'll put it that way. In this field, if you want tee to green, you got to hit small greens. You got to get up and down. Like Collin Morikawa can do that. I know it's been a long time since he's won. However, 11-1 is a good number for the form he's in, and I just don't subscribe to the fact that he can't win. It's just not really how things work.
Yeah, I know we talked about Morikawa a lot on this show, but I am in the exact same place as you for this week for all the reasons you mentioned, because the irons are just so good right now. He's gained at least a stroke per round on approach in 3 consecutive, and a stroke is a lot per round. So he's done that in 3 straight events. He has done that in 5 of his past 6, and in 10 out of 20 events over the past calendar year. That is absurd. The consistency with which he has had upside there. And like, that's how you spike. That's how you contend. That's how you finish, top 3, which he's done a bunch. The accuracy is good here if that winds up mattering again at Harbour Town. So yeah, 11-1 is short, but there's also one less massive roadblock in the field with Rory McIlroy not here. So I know it sucks to like hear us pump up Morikawa again, but like I'm gonna do it because I think that it's the right move despite that fatigue.
Remember that 1 stroke per round approach mentality, because it's going to come back into play. Maybe not for my next outright, but I understand if anyone listens, like I'm not betting Collin Morikawa to win. He doesn't win, whatever. I have 5 total bets this week. I did put the sort of additional one in the non-outright section, but it kind of rides the line, and I want to make that clear. So if you don't like Collin, maybe you like this other name that I'm going to talk about. Not right yet.
Okay.
There's someone in between, but
okay.
Keep that in mind, because it was just my ears perked up when you said like gaining 1 stroke per round with approach, because it's going to come back around soon.
Is Tom Hoagie in the field? What are we doing here? Like, okay. We're both on Collin Morikawa 11-1. I know you all are shocked to hear that, but who's your other outright for this week?
So I already kind of spoiled this one. I said I told Jim on Slack, like I'm pulling a Jim here, where it was like Jim at the end of the show tends to pick some name for win picks that we didn't really talk about, and I get it, but I was going up and down the board. I was looking at before I settled on Morikawa, I was looking at Ludwig, I was looking at Xander a little bit, Cantlay, Connors, Russell Henley, Shane Lowry, and then I was like, kind of went full circle and it smacked me in the face. I'm like, I like Justin Thomas to win the RBC Heritage at plus 2,000. There is a long list of golfers who play well here. We already kind of went through that, the top of that board. And Thomas doesn't really feel like the best fit, but he plays well here. He's a good fit. Part of that is because he's one of the best wedge players and chippers that we have on tour. And that is a big part of playing Harbour Town. These are some of the smallest greens we get. You're going to miss greens. You got to get up and down. He can do that. I'm not worried about the T36 last week, even with bad ball striking at Augusta. It's clearly not his course, and that's fine, because they're not playing Augusta again this week, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but I guess if they keep it to once a year, it's probably for the best. But Thomas is 3rd in approach and 2nd around the green among this field over the last 50 rounds. And if you look at that, I talked about it with like Morikawa and some other guys, but that math-based ceiling, take your average plus a standard deviation. Scotty rates out at a 5.2. That's sort of like his attainable ceiling in terms of strokes gained per round. He can get more than that, of course, but like a bit of a realistic ceiling. He's at a 5.2. JT's at a 5.0 over his last 50, and nobody else is particularly close. I think there's one name at a 4.7. Yeah, and that's Xander. And I'll shout out that in case this comes back around, Russell Henley's fourth at a 4.6. But
in case
that's
it comes back around in 3 minutes, you mean?
Well, 1 second, basically 3 seconds, I guess. So I like JT. What really sold me on him was that mathematical ceiling that I was talking about, but then realizing that he did play better here than I kind of realized, and it makes sense why. And I know there's that fatigue, but now you're not paying that fatigue price on JT. You're paying a pretty normal price for JT, and my model's showing enough value here for me to win and get on Justin Thomas. So if you don't like Colin, I get that, but take a long look at Justin Thomas. You might see what you like.
Yeah, Thomas, again, 20-1 to win for this week at FanDuel Sportsbook. I like the volatility angle because something we talk a lot about here is having that good variance. JT has had that based on what you're seeing here, and I have been on him quite a bit, looked into him this week, so I'm glad that you're there. And at least one of us can benefit if JT does break through. So you got JT 20-1 and Colin Morikawa at 11. I have Colin Morikawa at 11-1. And as we alluded to, my other outright for this week is going to be Russell Henley at 25-1. Looked into Connors at 22, looked into Cantlay, looked into JT, settled on liking Henley more. And a big part of it is that I talk about this strokes gained and stabilization stat, which is looking at more recent rounds for your ball striking data, longer sample for the short games that takes longer to stabilize. And Henley actually ranks fourth in the field in strokes gained and stabilization. And that's before accounting for this being a course style fit for him, where distance may not be as imperative as it is other spots. And Henley is a guy who will still gain off the tee despite not having distance because his placement is so good. He's also a plus in the other three strokes gained stats. He's got a good and long history at Harbour Town. He's got 4 top 20s here, including 3 of the past 4 years. Not any like spike events, but I think that Henley's form right now, honestly, is probably pretty close to its peak. Could look at data golf to kind of measure whether it's his peak, but I'm guessing it's probably near it based on the way he has played. So I know he just won for us pretty recently. I know 25-1 this week is shorter than the 44 he was at when he won a couple months ago, but I do still like it quite a bit. So Henley 25-1, betting on that good tee to green play, betting on this being a good course fit. Also, frankly, he is a good putter, which does not hurt by any means. So I do like Henley at 25-1. Any thoughts for you on Henley, given he did kind of pop up in the volatility discussion earlier?
I like him. It's a matter of you can't bet everyone.
Yeah.
And we love Russell Henley. I've actually compared Russell Henley to Justin Thomas like years ago when they had really similar profiles.
Yeah.
This now is a step back of like, and maybe this is some bias within me, and I'm saying this as someone who loves Russell Henley, but if I can get JT at 20-1 or Russell Henley at 25, I feel like that's enough of a tipping point to go with sort of the name brand version of that archetype. Yeah. But I get it with Henley. I was almost there myself. Yeah. I just got drawn into JT the more I looked at him.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I do agree with like the name brand thought process too, which is part of why I was looking into those guys, but just couldn't quite talk myself into them about Henley. But I've got Henley 25. You got JT 20, in addition to us both having Morikawa at 11. Okay, you got 3 non-outrights for this week. Who are you eyeing there?
So this one's a borderline outright, especially for those who don't like Morikawa. And I'll just say, I will be there for an outright, but it's a name that we did kind of talk about. You said you were uncertain if you were going to talk about him again, but it's Sepp Straka.
I said I hadn't bet him yet, and I think I need to find a way to. I think my outright card is full, so I don't know if I can add there, but I think I'm going to find someplace else to add Sepp.
So you remember talking about Morikawa and gaining 1 stroke per round.
Yes.
I will spare rattling off the whole list, but just know that over his last 14 starts, Sepp Straka has not only gained on approach in 13 of those 14, he's gained at least 1 shot from approach per round in 13 of those 14. He did not have check it out. Go to his data golf page, and He missed the cut at the Masters. He gained 1.80 shots per round with his approach.
Oh my gosh.
That I know. I know, it's sick. So over the last 50 rounds, 7 golfers in the field are gaining at least 1 shot per round from approach. This is, I don't even want to call it like unsustainable. He is such a good iron player. He's at a 1.20 on average over the last 50 rounds. That trails just Scotty Scheffler, who's at a 1.23. Generational iron player, Scotty Scheffler. He is such a good ball striker. He's more accurate than he is long, which I'm okay with this week. I don't need to see a bunch of fairways hit leading in. And the putter can get hot and cold. And that variance is there for Straka. He is 9th in the field in that sort of ceiling stat that I was talking about. He's at a 4.3. That's well within striking distance. We've seen him go out and win on the PGA Tour. He did it at the American Express. He's also been top 5 here in 2 of his last 3 starts. I don't know what else you could want for Sepp Straka. If you're saying like, look, I also kind of understand all of this. If you're like, yeah, but Scotty's going to go out and win, so outrights on anybody other than Scotty don't make any sense. I hear that. That's fine. But Sepp Straka plus 350 for a top 10, I like that plenty. That's my actual official recommendation because I don't want to give 3 outrights, especially with 2 of them being somewhat shorter. But 45-1 to me for a guy with that level of approach play is definitely worth taking a look at.
Okay, well, I need to find a top 10 number on Sepp that I can take. Plus 350 at FanDuel, that is very attractive. So I'm going to keep digging because you talked me into this. I would never place bets during work, but hypothetically, just out of curiosity, I'm going to look. So you got Straka plus 350. I like when you said that stat, my mouth kind of dropped. Then I pulled up the Data Golf page and I saw it. I was like so happy, like, oh man, Morikawa's gained at least a stroke in 10 out of 20 in the past calendar year. But you're right, Sepp's done it in 13 out of 14. So I mean, like obviously there are other areas where other guys gain on him, but like I don't care, man. Plus 350 for a top 10 is sick. I'm fully on board with Straka there.
Nice. I also like Aaron Rai, who's got a much lower sort of ceiling. He's at a 3.4 in that metric that I was talking about, 0.9 shots worse in terms of reaching his like ceiling potential. I like him for finishing position, top 10 at plus 330. I'm there with. He's golfing at his peak, but also 125 for a top 20. It's a smaller field, but it's also a tougher field. So Aaron Rai did make the cut at Augusta last week. He was T27, gained strokes everywhere, all 4 areas, which you love to see. That did come after a missed cut at the Houston Open, but that missed cut had actually ended a streak of 3 straight events with top 15s when he did that at Mexico Open, the Arnold Palmer Invitational, and the Players Championship, 2 of those really strong fields. The form at Harbour Town's kind of limited, just a T48 in 2023, but he was 14th in strokes gained ball striking, so off the tee plus approach that year, so that looks a lot better from that standpoint. He leads the field in accuracy over the last 50 rounds, which is lovely to see, not a must for me based on how I'm approaching this. And he's also top 30 in approach and off the tee play. So he kind of checks every box to finish well for a top 10, shows some upside, but again, I'm okay with that top 20 for those of you who like to kind of increase your chance of cashing. But Aaron Rai, his profile right now is really good. My final name here, I'm most comfortable with a top 20. But it's Daniel Berger. He was T21 at the Masters last week. He's got 7 straight top 30s. He still kind of has the questions over like the true ceiling as he's working his way back. But so 7 straight top 30s, and that's 7 straight events with positive strokes gained approach. And if you actually look at envision a grid in your head, 4 strokes gained stats over 7 events, 28 total. He's gained in 27 of those 28. Like he's got a really balanced game right now. Top 20, plus 150. I know it's just plus 150, but it's a smaller field. And with the way he's golfing, so balanced at a course that really requires everything. I like Daniel Berger a lot this week.
Yeah, Berger's a guy we've talked about quite a bit and someone I am very much receptive to. So, like, I did look into him a bit as well. I do like that you're on him. At the top 20 at plus 150, Aaron Rye, someone who I did bet myself earlier on this week as well. Not my recommendations. I like a couple other bets more, but did bet him myself. He's currently plus 330 for a top 10 at FanDuel Sportsbook. The other one was, of course, Straka, plus 350 for a top 10 for this week. For my first non-outright, it's a guy that typically you're higher on than I am, but I do think this is a good week for him, and I think it's a good market for him because I want to go towards Tommy Fleetwood and bet him to finish inside the top 10 this week, which is currently at FanDuel Sportsbook sitting down at plus 260. Given the field size and given Tommy's consistency, I actually do think that is pretty enticing. The consistency is really sick for a market like this, especially at a good course for him. He is accurate off the tee. The irons for Fleetwood are why you've been on him at times recently, and that's still true right now. Last week at Augusta, Fleetwood finished 21st. He did that despite losing almost a stroke per round putting, which means that everywhere else for him was really, really good. So Fleetwood's a guy where I'm not going to see the upside as far as an outright bet. But here I don't need that. We got one less big gun in the field with Rory McIlroy freeing up another spot inside the top 10 for a guy like Fleetwood to get there. And again, I don't need him to have this like 95th percentile event to get there. I think that's pretty enticing at plus 260 for a top 10. So I do like Tommy Fleetwood at that number, finish inside the top 10 for this week. Do you have any thoughts, Tommy, this week? Because again, I know that you're kind of more the Tommy guy than I am typically.
I did 33-1 after we've been there, or I've been there at shorter numbers is like, hey, am I overlooking this?
Sure.
When you talk fatigue with Tommy, there's a little more to it than with Colin, who's got that ceiling. He's been in contention. Tommy he hasn't been in contention much, even though he plays really consistent golf. There is golf analysis is so interesting because you need long-term samples to be good to trust them, but you also need volatility, and he just doesn't he's not terrible in terms of having upside, but
yeah,
he just doesn't flash to the degree that someone like Colin Morikawa can.
Right.
I know the numbers are drastically different, so it's not a super fair comparison. I like Tommy to finish top 10. I could probably blindly say like Tommy to finish top 10 is a fair, just like betting Scotty to win anything is like, that's sure. So you can throw the data out. Yeah. Logically, it probably makes sense anyway. So I gave him some thought. I just couldn't quite get there, but I like the shout out for sure.
All right, so I got Tommy at plus 260 for a top 10. Other top 10 for me is Denny McCarthy at 4-1. I've been on McCarthy quite a bit recently, but again, he's been fine, so I don't mind. Keep going back to this well. Finished 29th at Augusta. He actually gained in all 4 categories, which I think you mentioned during the current form section. McCarthy is still being propped up by the putter for sure. That's where he's getting his upside, but his irons and his wedges are both good, and he's mostly neutral off the tee. Should get bumped up there this week at a place where distance doesn't matter as much. His history at Harbour Town is not amazing by any means, but I do like his form. So I'm on board with McCarthy for 4-1 for a top 10. So I got Denny McCarthy 4-1 top 10, Tommy Fleetwood plus 260 as well. Let's finish up here by breaking down the DFS side of things and breaking down our top DFS picks on FanDuel for this week. Brandon, we haven't really talked a lot about Scotty this week, which feels odd given he is the betting favorite at plus 360, but I feel like we might have been saving him for this section because in DFS, to me, Scotty is a very different beast and a guy I would like to get to. As you said, it is very tough because the salary is $14,000. Put Scotty in there. Salary remaining is $9,200 for 5 remaining golfers. It's tough, but I feel like he's worth prioritizing. Yeah.
You don't get floor or safety in any sport in any capacity. That's not lost on me, but especially with golf and with Scotty, you get as close to that as really we've ever seen since we've been doing this for with golf. I think it was 2017 or something. Yeah. This just has been different for long enough where he's going to be in my head-to-head against you. I'll figure it out from there. Full transparency, I know I just said what I said. I could not get a lineup that I loved in our head-to-head with either Scotty or Rory last week. I went with Colin. I was kicking myself right away for settling on that. You get someone like Scotty with like 15+% win equity in a small field like this, even though it's tough at a course where he's already won. Like, was that the Rosa endorsement?
Yeah, I think.
The dogs are barking.
Trying to interpret what it was. I can't tell if it was a positive or a negative.
I mean, with Scotty, the dogs are barking. I think we know. So
yeah,
and like it's so hard even to make the case because the case makes itself.
Yeah, like I just got to find a way. And frankly, like, yes, it does mean you're probably skipping over like that second tier. Like it's tough to get Scotty with Morikawa's at 12-2, Xander's 11-9, Ludwig is at 11-8, JT 11-4, Cantlay 11-1. Like it is tough to get those guys in there, but I don't mind the group just below them. Like Shane Lowry's at 10-8. I know he kind of struggled on Sunday, but overall really good week last week. Russell Henley is 10-6, Fleetwood 10-5. That's a good range to me. So personally, I would rather get Scotty and skip over the tier of like Morikawa, Schauffele, and Oberg. And I'm okay with that. That's kind of the way I view things for this week.
And to clarify, I mean, we're talking building your best lineup, cash games.
Yeah.
Scotty stands out. Tournaments, you can still build around Scotty.
Yeah.
But that's where you ask that question. Like, what does $1,800 do for me to go to Colin? Or if you're not like into Colin, what if you save, what is that, $2,200 to get to Ludwig? You know, we talk about glossing over people like Xander and Ludwig didn't get any attention here. If they go out and win, Scotty's probably not going to be in like the winning lineup of any tournament you're in, just because pairing Scotty with one of those guys is really difficult. So it's different for tournaments, but when we're talking like baseline here, we love Scotty for cash games and process wise. Where are you with tournaments with Scotty? Because this feels different because we have a lot of big names, but Scotty still stands out like head and shoulders above the rest.
I think that's where I settle in is I think even in tournaments, I want to be there. And so if we assume that Scotty will probably be on 40% of rosters, that probably fair?
Probably a good guess, yeah.
I'd probably prefer to be around 60.
Okay.
It's hard to go above 60 just because like it is a high salary. Like it's not a discount. But I can try to stack up my value elsewhere. So I would want to be above in tournaments personally. That's not always been the case, frankly. Partly because it's like, okay, I'll just go Rory at a lower roster rate a lot of the time. And I don't get that this week. So I think it's a 60% Scotty for me. So there for cash games, and I want to be above in tournaments too.
Yeah, he's just in such a good place, and it's been a while since he's won, but he's playing good enough golf to win.
Correct.
You take Rory out of the equation, Scotty even at 14. We'll find ways. Ways.
I agree. Okay, so if we use Scotty, we're probably skipping past this tier. Obviously, like if we're not using it in every lineup, I don't know. I feel like Morikawa is the first place I'd turn at 12-2. Is that kind of where you settle into?
Yeah, it'd be Morikawa.
Yeah.
I love Xander. I love Ludwig, even though I kind of seem low on him a lot. But I wouldn't mind. And frankly, for Ludwig, he's such a good golfer, but his irons just aren't on par with the other studs most of the time. I think I'm most likely to go with Morikawa or JT. Starting with Justin Thomas is going to build you a whole different lineup. If you plug him in, you got 97.20 per golfer. Whereas with Scotty, if you start with him, you got 9,200. That'll add up. It'll take some pressure off. And I know it's a big difference in terms of profile, but you can kind of build a more robust, balanced lineup this way. So for anybody not watching, Jim had built.
I tried to put Connors in there too, and that seemed a little out over my skis.
But you get Scotty Scheffler in there. You have 9,200 left for 5 golfers on average. If you start with Justin Thomas, Russell Henley, and Tommy Fleetwood, you have 9,167. So let's round it up. Say it's 92 for 3 golfers. Yeah. So different. Right. Still, even with that knowledge, I prefer getting Scotty into our head-to-head. So it's going to be a 5v5 at best.
But the advantage of Thomas is that it is a very different roster. And I think that's
different by default.
That's intriguing for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree with you. Morikawa probably the first place I go, but JT is definitely intriguing. I don't mind Cantlay at 11-1, frankly, just because like I think the course history does matter at least a bit. Kind of like you mentioned, it's a lot of guys that played very well here. His course history is very good. The form is good too. Irons buzzing for him ever since the start of February. So I like him. You're talking me into JT though. So I think if you force me to pick, I'd probably go Justin Thomas. But it's
over
close.
Cantlay.
Yeah.
I just feel like JT's got such a bigger ceiling.
Yeah.
I know that sounds with Cantlay finishing top 7 here 5,000 times in a row, but JT's also played well enough here for me to want to buy into his more recent form.
Yep. Okay. What about in the 10K range? What stands out to you there?
So it's a pretty like big range. I don't want to just like, but this is turning into you can't play them all. You can't bet them all.
Sure.
But Corey Connors at 10-9. We liked him last week. I don't dislike him this week. I'm just probably not there myself. Same for Shane Lowry, 2 great tee to green golfers. If one of them went out and won, I wouldn't be astonished by any means. Victor Hovland showed some life again at Augusta, but just didn't really put it all together. I think, though, with everything said, I'm going to go to Russell Henley. But Tommy Fleetwood at 10-5 is like, I know you want ceiling, but a top 10 is also a ceiling. It's just so different than going out and stepping on someone's neck to win. And Tommy can sort of just like shake some hands and finish T8. And you're like, that was sick for 10,500. So
sure.
I'm probably going Henley and Fleetwood standing out the most in the 10K range for me personally, until we get to my boy Sepp Straka at 10-2.
I think I agree with that as well. Straka 10-2, like you said, good salary for him. And he's a guy you can get to as like your third golfer in this field, like pretty easily if you're going with not Scotty. Maybe even like your fourth, if like, if we decide to go down a bit further. Like let's say I decide to go with Connors as opposed to Justin Thomas. Connors, Henley, Fleetwood, Straka leaves me $8,900 left. I could put Aaron Ryan there plus one other guy. It's not a bad lineup. So multi-entering for tournaments, having Straka like 4 guys above 10K, that to me is pretty interesting this week because it is a very good range.
It is.
Okay, let's go below 10K then. Who stands out to you there?
Not your boy Wyndham Clark. Not my guy, apparently, Robert McIntyre. I'll throw that in there too, because that didn't work out last week. But he's at 10,000. It's Daniel Berger for sure. I talked about him a decent bit, but 7 straight top 30s with good overall stats, consistent play. Berger and then Danny McCarthy at 96 is where I'm at. Don't mind Keegan at 93, but might prefer JJ Spawn at 92. I wouldn't hate if I had to play Michael Kim at 91, but I think the 3 names that I'm most into in a pretty clear order in the 9,000 range are Daniel Berger, Danny McCarthy, and JJ Spawn.
I have McCarthy
at salary.
Yeah, I have McCarthy at 96 and Bradley at 93. Nothing else really calls to me.
Not even Berger?
Like, I like Berger, but like, I wouldn't put him like, I think that McCarthy and like Keegan are like fringe loves. I think that Berger's alike. So I think it does thin out pretty quick. Like the 9K range this week is not amazing, is kind of my takeaway. Yeah.
Which is an easier sell for Scotty as a result.
Correct.
If the 8,000 range is loaded with names that you love, which is kind of the hard part.
But it's also an endorsement of going with like the 4 guys 10K and above discussion, where it's like you just skip this range entirely and say, I don't care. I'll miss out on all of them. I'm fine with that too. So not as enamored than the 9K range. Brandon likes Berger at 98. We both have McCarthy at 96 and Keegan Bradley at 93. I agree that you were assessing Michael Kim as well at 91, where it's like, I got 91 left in that 10K or 4th 10K plus. So I wound up 91 on the table. I'd have gone Michael Kim as that 6th golfer there again, despite the fact he needs an ice bath desperately. Okay. 9K and lower. Who are the value plays who are calling to you this week?
If we're going in order of salary and just who's in the player pool, I will shout out JT Poston at 88. He has played well here in the past. He's got 4 top 10s in 6 starts. The other 2 were missed cuts. It's not all from ball striking. It's a lot of it's from putting and hitting fairways, but he's made a ton of cuts lately. Not a huge ceiling, but he did win the Shriners back in October. I'm okay with him, but he's not my favorite play. Bud Cauley just below that, I prefer to Poston for his recent form. There's more to like, more recent ceiling with Bud Cauley, with, as Jim's pointing up here, 3 straight top sixes, one of which was the Players, one of which was the Valspar. So don't hate that. But the name that I'm going to be pulling into my lineups the most from this tier is Aaron Ride 87. I think he's really undersalaried, frankly. I know he missed the cut at Houston, but played the Masters well, played the Players well. Like, he's a really good golfer. Was 11th at API as well. Like, statistically, he fits. I think he's one of the best course fit adjustments for data golf, but I don't really even need that because he's just such a good golfer overall. Aaron Ride 87 is definitely a love for me. But those are the 3 names at the top of the 8K range that jump out to me. What about for you?
Yeah, I have Aaron Rye and Bud Cauley as my 2 here for the same reasons you alluded to. Rye, we don't have to talk a lot more about, just undersalaried, kind of like as you said. With Cauley, you talked about those 3 straight good finishes. He's doing it mostly with ball striking, which is nice, but he's also putting the ball pretty well too. If you look at him pre-injury, he did finish 9th at this course back in 2017, so we don't tend to dig back that far for course history. I think for Berger and for Cauley, it's a bit more pertinent given the fact that like they were really good back then. They were like, guys who had some juice and now are getting back into that form. So I do like Cauley at 87, Aaron Rye 87 as well. It's outside of that where I'm kind of struggling. And let's say I go Scotty at 14,000. I wouldn't hate the idea of spending down a bit more in order to give myself more, I'd like to have another guy above 10K in there somewhere. Probably Henley's there, Straka's there, but it's like, so I want to get some leeway. So if I'm looking like further down, I know this is like, we had the fatigue with like Morikawa and JT for betting. There's probably a similar, if not worse, fatigue with Lucas Glover from a DFS perspective, but he's 83, man. Like, I don't know, like it's not that bad. And like, he's done fine. The irons are still really good, super accurate off the tee. I say he's done fine. He's missed a lot of cuts recently. Yeah. So like, I'm still there. And like, if I need some extra ammo to get back up after I use Scotty, I'm probably going to use Lucas Glover from just being like honest with myself here.
Yeah, don't fact check this one, but I think he's played here 10,000 times as well. But he's got some ceiling, weeks recently. It's not flawless, but Glover at 83, he was on my list as sort of like a, if I need to, he's on there. Also someone who's showed go back up to where you are now.
Yeah.
The fact
I went
that
up there intentionally.
Will Zalatoris and Tony Finau are 8,500, and we're just like, I would rather play Will Zalatoris, even though he cost me dearly last week. I'd rather go Zalatoris than Finau. But the fact that I'm gonna say I might like Max Homa more.
So I'm annoyed about this. Like, I had a Homa versus Harris English matchup bet for 72 holes at the Masters. And I was like sweating this thing the whole weekend. It should have been like the dumbest, like head-to-head bet where it's like, yeah, one of these guys missed the cut and I'll sweat it the entire weekend.
Yeah.
These monsters decided to have a 72 hole duel that I believe resulted in a push. So I had all that sweat to just get my money back. And so like, just seeing the 2 of them together on the page honestly makes my brain kind of cry a little bit.
Yeah, both finished T12 last week, but I don't mind either of them.
Sure.
There's no real reason. If you like Lucas Glover, you should probably be fine with like Tom Hoagie as well.
Yeah.
So really what we're talking about here is if you're inclined to include Zalatoris, like there's 5 names at or below 8,500 to consider, but they're all just like, I guess if I have to.
Yeah.
It is such a wild state that Zalatoris, like you would think Zalatoris and Finau were just like typoed in there in FanDuel and like, wow, this is supposed to be like 10-5 each, but
honestly, Homa too.
Homa too, like a while ago.
Yeah.
but he showed something last week. Homa did. Harris English is a good golfer. So what I'm trying to build here is if you want to build around Scotty and you even, I don't know, is this even possible? What's Scotty plus like, who would be a sort of a realistic second option? Maybe like,
do you want to try JT?
Try JT. It's 86.50. I mean, this is the range we're just talking about. Like, you know, I don't love it, but you can do it. You just have to make a lot of you're making a ton of concessions.
Yes, you are.
But like, is this a demonstrably worse lineup than not having Scotty and like? And you know, we're saying JT, but it could be somebody else. It could be Henley. It could be Connors. Whatever. My point is, there are names you can click on and build cases for, but in terms of the loves, which is what we're about to round into, there's only one below 9,600 I can call a love at salary based on form and course fit and everything, and that's Aaron Rai.
Yep. I agree with that as well. Okay, so who are your loves for this week?
For DFS on FanDuel, Scotty Scheffler, Justin Thomas, Russell Henley, Sepp Straka, Daniel Berger, and Aaron Rai. I know a lot of those are in the top end.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm seeing this week. We went through a lot of options to consider, but those are the guys I want to get into my lineups. The other names are names I'm fine with if I need to that we talked about.
I think my only loves are Scheffler, Henley, and Rai. Like those are the only guys I'm like, yeah, I want to use them this week. There are a lot of guys I'll use.
You're getting Straka so hard in our head-to-head as if you don't play him then.
Straka is a fun verb, and I'd like to keep that in the lexicon at some point. I like Cantlay. I like Straka.
Getting Straka is like leading the field in approach and missing the cut.
Yeah. I like Bud Cauley. I like Keegan at 93. I like McCarthy at 96, but I think like my actual loves are going to be Scheffler, Henley, and Rai. Let's finish up with our win picks for this week. I didn't realize until you told me today that I won the bobble hat because I saw how trashy my lineup was and didn't check it the rest of the weekend.
It was slappers only, but you had Scotty and Connors against. It was effectively Scotty and Connors against Shane Lowry and Colin Morikawa, which I was holding on hope until Lowry just ejected on Sunday, but
which also was not good for me because I had Lowry in like every other lineup outside of my bobble hat, so that was upsetting. So it means I can pick 1 and 4 or 2 and 3. I think it should be very obvious right now. I'll pick 1 and 4, and I want Morikawa at 11-1 as my first win pick.
Yeah, I expected that. So I already locked in Justin Thomas at 20 and Sepp Straka at 45 for myself.
Perfect. So you've got JT at 20. You've got Straka 45. Who are your other like win pick or win bets in the betting section? With Straka being like top 10, but mostly I do like him outright too. In addition to Morikawa, I'm going to go with Russell Henley, 25-1. He is the reason I have a lead right now. So ride the horse that got you there. And he's also the other actual win bet that I like. So I'm going to stick with him and go Henley 25. So I got Morikawa 11, Henley 25. You have JT 20 and Sepp Straka at 45. Any final thoughts for you before we send off the good people to fill out their lineups and their bet slips for the RBC Heritage Open?
It's going to sound similar to what I said last week at the end of the show, but there are some big names. Not like nobody can play everybody. Nobody can bet everybody. So you're probably going to, like, if you listen to us, other shows, or just do some more reading, you're being like, why is nobody talking about Xander? Like, he played really well last week. Like,
he did. Especially
Xander goes on and wins. Like
Friday to Sunday, he was awesome.
Like, it's not going to surprise anybody if Xander wins, but you can't build a better case for Xander than you can for Morikawa right now. That's all. Right. So, I mean,
right. Like last week, I think that Xander was like 22 and Morikawa was like 16, somewhere in there. This week, there isn't really a gap. So that's kind of the reason why I couldn't get there. But yeah, I think that I agree with your sentiment of like, you can talk yourself and justify a lot of guys. So you can be different without being dumb this week, which for DFS is always fun. And I think that's an enticing week for sure, despite the fact there's no Rory in this field. That is all that we have here for today on the Heat Check. We'll be back with you once again next week, as always, here, same place, same time. Check us out on the FanDuel Research Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts, or the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page. Brandon, if people have questions for you on social media, where can they find you there?
I'm on X at Gdula13, GDULA13, and on Blue Sky at Gdula, where I'll probably be tweeting and talking about, well, on Blue Sky, I might talk about WrestleMania this weekend, but probably not.
Are you actually going to post?
I might.
Are you going to ski?
I got some thoughts.
Okay.
I'll say this because it's the end of the show, but Rory getting his green jacket was like Cody Rhodes winning the WWE Championship last year at WrestleMania and finishing his story. So, wrestling's great. So,
like Dale Earnhardt winning the Daytona 500. There we go.
Exactly.
I think that's a good one. Okay, I am on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. I want to give a big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work in the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets and your DFS lineups for the RBC Heritage Open. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast.